What's poppin', y'all? Kid Cudi's in the hot seat once again, and it all stemmed from a comparison to Michael Jackson, which, oddly enough, led to a spiral, and we gotta go through this. So, this person, the tweet that's been spreading around with the headline is, Kid Cudi, in a now deleted post, described Michael Jackson as, quote, just music, while expressing a desire to be remembered across multiple creative fields. And this fan responded to a Kid Cudi tweet that I'll read you guys later, where he says, can never surpass MJ. And Kid Cudi says, Michael was the greatest, but he was just music. I'm thinking more than music. I want to be known as one of the greatest because of my range creatively in the arts. Music, visual arts, painting, fashion, directing, acting, etc. Now, for the past couple of years, there has been a Kid Cudi, I wouldn't say hate train, but it's like from the bottle throwing incident at, was that Rolling Loud? It was some music festival, to a bunch of other instances where he has like had an outburst on social media. People have recognized that Kid Cudi, you can get under his skin, and they've done it. And I mean, like, even Vlad, I thought this was like when Vlad called Kid Cudi a rat. I still don't get that when the guy was subpoenaed to show up to the Diddy situation. But this stemmed from a tweet where Kid Cudi wrote, and that's the one that the fan followed up with, where he says, we'll never be MJ. He said, my mission has always been to, at some point in my life, be recognized as one of the greatest artists of all time. Everything I make is a stamp in my journey to greatness. The ride ain't over no time soon. And that's what the fan said, you'll never be MJ. So already, that response from the fan is just, that's a hater's response. And what Kid Cudi replied with, I think, got lost in translation. Now, granted, listen, we're gonna go in on Cudi here, pause. But like, you guys also got to know, like, Cudi, when he's wearing pants instead of skirts, is one of my goats. Like, that's just, it's such heartfelt music. Like, you just, man, it's just, Kid Cudi's music is amazing. That's all there is to it. I don't even need to speak further of it. But with that being said, this is one of those things where if you have the conversation in person, people understand it. If you have the conversation within your own fan base, your fans might understand it. But once this gets to the public like this, it starts to get clipped, shipped, and then now people are saying, man, this guy comparing himself to Michael Jackson, saying Michael Jackson was just music. Like, what this seems like is he's knocking down Michael Jackson's accomplishments. And some people will say, like, yo, short films and music videos, that goes with what Michael Jackson was doing. You know, you've got Thriller, you've got a bunch of different things that Michael Jackson has done creatively. And when it comes to performance, right, like, Michael Jackson was a dancer, he was a singer, he was a live performer. And we can also talk about Michael Jackson was one of the first artists that was like a pioneer. I don't know if you call this creative, but like, think about how great of a clip farmer that Michael Jackson was. Like, yo, holding your kid above a balcony, your baby above a balcony in front of a hotel, like, that's legendary. That would be a clip everywhere. So he was moving, and also like the monkey, the pet, like, he was just an eclectic figure, right? However, a lot of people, what they're saying is that they know Michael Jackson for music. When you think of Michael Jackson, you think music and performance. But he's trying to say, you know, like drawing, things like that. And I'll read you guys another tweet. Damn, my discography is effing masterful. Listening to Indica while I paint. I was just on fire producing this album. The bars, the hooks. I'm going to dive into Satellite Flight next. Forgive me if this seems like this is just hitting me now, but during those times I was in my head about a lot and couldn't see what others did. It's a beautiful thing when albums age well, and I feel like all mine do. It's a little bit of context for Satellite Flight. I thought Satellite Flight was good, but Indica got a lot of flack from, and this was post The Wizard, but the reason why this got a lot of flack was Kid Cudi decided to do the production here all by himself, and before that he was working with people like Plain Pat, Emil, Dot the Genius, and people were like, yo, you're just producing this yourself. So there was mixed reception on Indica. But circling back to the point of him saying Michael Jackson was just music, I've experienced this stuff. Like, if you've watched me for a while, especially on the main channel, when I'm like really like kind of fleshing out an idea and it's long and scripted, I'll say something where you're like, yo, what the hell, this person's tripping, if you just hear that. But then you listen to the entire explanation and you're like, okay, you know, I see where he's coming from, even if you may disagree. I feel like this is the same scenario. However, I don't think Kid Cudi is of the pedigree to where he can say that. Now, Kid Cudi has done a lot of things. Like, for example, he had that animated show, I think, on Netflix that he helped produce, and he's been doing a lot of things, but they have not yet reached the level that his music has in the eyes of really fans and people that watch things. Like, for example, if Ye says this, we recognize Ye as fashion. We recognize Ye as music. We recognize Ye as, hell, even just design as a whole, whether it comes to like performance, also putting on just huge performances. And we recognize Ye as just being this global icon. So with Ye, we can understand it more than a Kid Cudi. However, the range that Kid Cudi has, objectively speaking, and this is me messing with Ye more than Cudi. Kid Cudi's like produced an animated show. Kid Cudi has also acted himself. Ye has not done that. And that's not to take away from Ye, but it's just another example. However, if we are to compare with Cudi, we've got a Chris Brown who does better than Cudi. Overall, if we're talking artist, he's a better performer than Kid Cudi. Some people will say he has a better discography. Me personally, objectively speaking, the amount of music that Chris Brown has, you could say it's just so hard. I can accept somebody saying Chris Brown is better than Kid Cudi. Would I say that? No. It's just, like there's an emotional aspect to things, and my emotions lie more towards Kid Cudi's music. So some people would say he's a better musician, also performer. Also on top of that, when you take like painting and drawing and that type of an artistic pursuit, Chris Brown is really, really talented. He's up there when it comes to that. I don't know about production because Kid Cudi does produce as well, even though most of his production is for himself. So there's that. But he had to know that this was coming when he decided to talk about Michael Jackson being just music. Like Michael, when somebody is so beloved and has passed away, people will not give you the benefit of the doubt when you say something like that, and just even look into what you were saying, because it's easy to hate on Kid Cudi. That's the problem. Well, it depends on a problem. He's kind of like set himself up for something like that. But like if a Drake said something like this, they'd be crushing him too. If Ye said something like this, it would be 50-50. And I think people would defend Ye's point because Ye's gotten to that point where it's his work speaks volumes. And I think Kid Cudi, it hasn't happened yet that his work speaks volumes across the board, right? Like I would say with performances, because people say Kid Cudi's a good performer. With performances, with music, and I don't know about production yet, if that's like spread. I recognize the production. But with those two things, Kid Cudi has it. And I would say maybe acting is close on the third, but it's a significant drop off in comparison to the other two with how recognized he is for that. And if you guys remember, there was like these short films that Kid Cudi was filming during the Man on the Moon era. But the problem with like trying to have this type of range is you can never really excel at all of them. And that's why we don't see, the top director also being one of the greatest musicians and also being one of the greatest painters. You just can't compete at the highest level. However, you could have, like, for example, like Ye is design and music. That's mainly it. And Ye also has the talent to be able to identify, number one, and convince the best people to work with him to execute on his vision. And that's a Steve Jobs type of trait. A lot of people will just try to do the stuff themselves. Like, for example, Virgil was design. He really wasn't music. Like he had taste. He could DJ and stuff like that. If you guys remember that era, it was like him, Heron, Preston, and those other guys. No, there was one other guy, I think. The name is escaping me. But he could DJ and all that, but he dedicated everything to design. And overall, as a designer, some people would say that many people would say that Virgil is better than Ye. How with clothing as well, because Ye with clothing, there's been a lot of merchandise, but the Yeezy season lines have never stuck. There hasn't been pieces that have stuck. The Gap line, yes, for sure. But before that, when he was trying to have like the more higher end thing, which he's always been trending more towards like cheaper as well. But that's not the point. So with Ye, even with the music aspect of it, hasn't produced everything himself. So he is more of the Steve Jobs assembling people. And that's also something that Elon Musk does, right? Like Elon Musk gets the right people to be able to have a rocket company and a technology company, or an electric car company, a rocket company, what is it called? The internet services company, like the satellite thing that they have. That's also one of like the most interesting products ever. And then he's got another one that is escaping me. Also the Boring Company, like digging those huge tunnels. So he's getting credit for all of this. However, he's able to get the talent in place to execute on these visions, because the vision is important. I don't know if it's the most important thing, but the vision is up there with being able to get the people to execute on that vision. And I think Kid Cudi's always been more of a loner, so this is going to hold him back the most, because you just can't do it alone. You cannot be at the top of all of these things by yourself. It's not possible. Or we have yet to see it. I don't like the word "it's not possible." But he seems to be taking it on the chin. Like he just deleted the tweet and kept it pushing. He's replying to a lot of fans one interaction that I really liked, because listen, man, we got to cover something positive, right? A fan asked him, he's like, yo, I want to get a tattoo of something that you've drawn. He said, my goat, would you do me the absolute honor of please drawing me a little doodle to get tattooed? I've been wanting to get a tattoo inspired by your work forever, but I've never been able to settle on one. It would mean the world. And then he says, okay, I'll DM you. So that's really something cool that Kid Cudi does. And he has done things like this for damn near the past 10 years. His interaction with fans for how popular he is up there. I mean, Wale also does that too. Wale interacts with fans a lot like that. I think these two are a dying breed of artists from that era that still do that actively. Granted, a lot of artists from that era have not survived or sustained a fan base for as long as these two guys have. But let me know what y'all think about this in the comments. Like and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed, and I'm gonna see y'all in the next one.